So the purpose of this tutorial is just to get two Cisco IP phones to call each other from separate routers, and what you need for this is two Windows VMs which will have the phones, and then one Linux Mint VM which will have the router. So here's the topology of what we're trying to do. So you want to install your C7200 bin off the internet or wherever, and then just place it in a directory of your choosing. So here I put it in /tron/desktop/router, and we're gonna have to specify that later on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to install Dynagen and Dynamips using this command. Before you do this, you want to run sudo apt-get update just to make sure your system's up to date, so nothing will go wrong. Then after that, you want to make the R1 and R2 Dynagen configuration files. You can name them whatever you want. I just named them this because it's easier for me. And then once you go into them, you want your configuration to look like this. And you'll see there's different things, such as like the IP up there with the port. That's where the router will be running. You got the image file that we downloaded, the console number which we will change to console into, and we also got our working directory here. So we just want to change the working directory to that, and that's essentially where the router files will be stored and whatnot. And you also want to do the same thing for R2, but you want to make some changes. For example, in the port number, you want to give it a different port, because if they have the same port, that could cause some problems. And then change the working directory once again, and also the console number. And another thing I forgot to do is you want to make sure the tap, it's tap 2 for router 2 and R1 is tap 1. They gotta be different. And for the image, you want to specify the path of wherever your image is located that you downloaded. So mine is in this path. As you can see here, that's where it's located along with all these router files. So we just want to do the same thing for R2 because we forgot to do that. And then we're pretty much good to go. So now we just want to start Dynamips for both ports and instances, and then also start the Dynagen using the two configuration files that we created. And then we just want to do start R1 and console R1 to start up the router, and then do the same for R2. So now what we want to do is we want to install the bridge utilities. This will help us create the bridge. You can just ignore all those other commands that were up there. I was just experimenting. But yeah, so this will just take a while or take a little bit, and then it should be done. So now we're going to be editing the /etc/network/interfaces configuration file. And so here we can see we have our bridges, and we're going to change the addresses and modify the static IP, which is where we will change the addresses. You can also see that the ENP0S3 interface, just be mindful that that might be different for you depending on your NIC and everything. So just use ifconfig to take a look at that. So these are the IPs that we will be setting, and you can also see that we'll have DHCP, just so we can have internet access in case we need it. And next we'll be adding the tap1 and tap2 interfaces with the brctl command. And then following that, we want to use the IP-link command just to make sure that the taps are up and operational. This is a common mistake that's made, so just be mindful and make sure that the taps are up. And then the next thing we want to do is install TFTP-D. Um, this will again allow the router to get the CME.tar file from the Linux VM, and this is what the TFTP configuration file should look like. You'll see that there's a slash TFTP boot there, so we're gonna have to create that, and I've already created it, so we're gonna get an error, kind of. And then we just want to, after that, move our tar file into the TFTP so our router can access it when we need that. And this is just to confirm. Then we just want to restart the service just to make sure, you know, everything kind of refreshes and it's good to go. Then we can just telnet into our routers using the 2521 and the 2522 ports and just do our configurations and set our IPs that we need to set. And you also want to make sure that you no shut it afterwards, just to be certain that the interface is up and operational. Because a lot of times, you know, interface could be down and you don't want that, so just make sure you do no shut. So now we will be formatting the disk and flashing the router. So as you can see here, I formatted the disk and it took a few seconds. And then here you can see I got an error while archiving the tar file. Usually, you know, you just want to double check if the XINETD service is running. So after restarting it, you know, it worked. Um, and as you can see here in router 1, it's working. And it does take a very long time, so just be patient with it. And here, while that's happening, you can see that here we got our IP addressing schemes all set up. So 5.22 is the default gateway for the Windows machine, the first Windows machine, and then 5.23 for the second Windows machine. And we're going to go ahead now and just install our Cisco IP Communicator, and it's a fairly simple process. Just gotta accept the terms and agreements, and you can choose your destination folder and all that. And you're gonna have to restart your computer. So now we can go ahead and just launch it, and you might get this error that there's no compatible sound devices, so you just gotta right click on the sound and go to sounds, and you can enable the audio service. So once the phones are loaded and running, you can right click, go to preferences, and you'll find your network settings here. And you want to make the TFTP server, so how you want to make it is for router 1, or so for phone 1, you want to make it router 1, and for phone 2, you want to make it router 2. So by doing this, the phones will register eventually with their own respective routers. So now you want to go to your Windows Defender firewall and just make sure your firewall is disabled, and that'll allow the phones to register and your system messages will appear. So here you can see for router 1 and router 2, they both have a phone that has been registered to them. So once they're all registered, you can go ahead and just go into the GUIs of both routers and log in with the username and password we created, which was admin or whatever you set. Just make sure at the end of your URL you have ccme.html. As you can see here, I put the wrong URL and it wasn't really working, so you want to be careful with that. So to start off with router 2, we want to create the extension first. So for router 2, we'll do 7922, and we'll just go ahead and press add. You don't have to worry about all this stuff unless you want a name or something. So then after you add the extension, we want to add the phone. And as you can see here, there's only one MAC address, which is the phone that we registered to router 2. So we can go ahead and just add it. And you can see here there's the phone line buttons, which is 1 by default, and all this other info that you don't really need to worry about. And now we're just going to do the same thing for this first router. And so for the first router, we'll make our extension 7822 instead of 7922. And once again, we're going to add the phone. And you can see here there's only one MAC address. So you can see now that after waiting a bit, and you can see that they have the extensions in the top right. Sometimes you gotta restart the program or the ePhone to kind of let it refresh. So now I'll be demonstrating changing the buttons. So how the button format works is it's button 2 and then colon, and after that comes your DN. So we want to just get rid of the first button and assign the new one. The colon basically means that it's going to be a normal ring for your phone. So you don't really have to do this, I'm just kind of demonstrating how to change your button, just getting rid of the old one. And we're going to do the same thing on router 2. So go into ePhone 1, get rid of the button 1 on DN1, and assign it button 2. So now we want to start configuring our dial peers for each router. And this is essentially what will allow the phones to reach each other and call each other. So after going to the dial peer configuration, we're going to set the destination pattern. And here you got to enter the destination number of the other router. So in this case, from router 1 to router 2 would be 7922. Then you want to set the session target, which is just the IP of the destination. And then you want to do the same thing for router 2, but the opposite. So the destination pattern here would be 7822, because that's the destination number of R1. And then the session target would be the 5.22 IP, because that's what we have configured on router 1. So now we can just go ahead and demonstrate a call to show that it works after configuring the dial peers. We have everything set up here, all the destination numbers and system messages. So we'll just go ahead and make a call. So we'll do 7922 to the other phone, and as you can see here, it is ringing. And we'll just end the call and do another one going the other way. So as you can see here, they're both calling each other and they both work. And so just to show you guys, we will do a dial peer summary, or dial peer voice summary. And as you can see here, we have our destination pattern, session target, and all that on tag 1. And you can see the same thing on this router. And so yeah, same thing here, just different IPs and a different destination pattern. So thank you for watching my tutorial on how to make 2 Cisco IP phones on 2 different routers successfully call each other. So just as some basic troubleshooting tips I just wanted to fit in. You want to make sure first and foremost you're always using sudo before every command, just so you are running the commands as an administrator, and you have all the proper permissions and all that. You also want to make sure your network is correct, and you can use a ping command to determine that. Everything should be able to ping each other. If your TFTP is not working, you can put a file in there and test that out and see if that's not working, and maybe the service needs to be restarted. And again, a really basic troubleshooting tip is restart the phones or routers or whatever it is, if everything else seems to be properly working, because sometimes a simple restart can fix the problem. So anyways, thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.